Welcome into a Tuesday edition of Views from the Stands. We truly appreciate you tuning in. I'm your host, Stevie B, Steve Brennan, and we have the GM, Mr. G Mike, and it is going to be a fun show for you today. We have a very special guest for you tonight, author of the book Road to the Final Hour, that's got everyone buzzing, Mr. Thomas McGovern. We also are going to be talking about college sports, an interesting look at some business aspects, the business side of college athletics. It's a really interesting topic here. I'm really excited for him to come on here. So we also have the CFP that just freshly came out. We're going to be talking about that a little bit. We have two major injuries in the NFL that shook up the NFL over the weekend. We have some history being made in the NBA by a rookie that is just lighting it up the last few weeks. We'll definitely be talking about that one. And we, of course, have a fun-filled DownBad Debate tonight, which we know everybody loves. So we're really looking forward to that one. So, Mr. G, Mike, before we get into all of that good stuff, how have you been, man? It's been a little couple weeks. Happy holidays. Why don't you let the good people know what you got going on, my friend?
Yeah, man, been good. I mean, did a great move from Orlando to Miami, back in the hometown of 305. I'm really excited for that. Great to start the new next chapter. And another thing I'm excited for, man, is sports gambling, baby. I run a Telegram channel where we could offer daily slips to get you winnings from $25 to $50 to $100 a day. We also have an affiliate program as well, where we could get you even more money on the side of that. I don't have the link with me right now if you're watching the live episode, but just go to my DMs. You'll see the social medias pop up, and I'll get you on and pop them. We could start a conversation on how to get you some money, baby.
There we go. Everybody likes a little extra change in the pocket, especially during the holidays. All right, man. We also giving a shout out to Varsity Sports Nation, man. Varsity Sports has been with us for a very long time since we've been doing this, so we truly appreciate them. The best part about Varsity is that you can get them on your convenience. You can get them on your iOS app, your Android app, your Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, as well as anywhere you get your social media. You can get them, and you can catch shows just like you're watching right now on demand. So please check out Varsity Sports Nation and support the guys that support us. As while we're on that, to come on support, can you please give us a like and subscribe? Tell your friends, tell your family. It's the holiday spirit. Spread the word, spread the joy. We really appreciate everything that's been going on that we had, and we truly appreciate all the fans and people that's been going out, helping us out with everything we got going on. So, without further ado, we do have a very special guest tonight. I'm gonna bring him on the show. Welcome in for the first time, Mr. Thomas McGovern. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Yeah, thanks, TVB and G Mike. Glad to be here.
Oh, we are extremely excited for you to come on here as well. So if you're new to Views to the Stands, why don't you go ahead and Mr. McGovern, tell everybody what you have going on and what your awesome book is all about.
Yeah, so Road to the Final Hour, it's available on Amazon. It talks about the catastrophic tax and financial consequences of the professionalization of college sports. Look, there's been no lack of controversy about college sports.
Yeah,
probably going back to its existence, but especially in the last 5 years or so, regarding NIL, transfer portal conduct, the role of the conferences and the NCAA. This book breaks down what's important about what is retained about college sports versus what has changed. And so it's important for it to keep certain aspects of the industry in order for it to retain its tax deductible status. And if it were to lose that, I'm arguing in here, and I actually show a lot of the numbers, that would be very catastrophic financially.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very intense because college football, and obviously we always talk about college football. That's like the big money one, but college sports in general, the dynamics have changed so much in the last couple of years. It seems like every year something new is going into college sports. But I did have a question for you real quick before we get way too into the book real quick. Just have a little fun here. What made you get into college sports, and what is your favorite team?
Well, I started out, growing up Irish, McGovern, right, as a Notre Dame fan back in New York, where I spent 20 years on Wall Street. Ended up going to UVA for grad school, and so inherited them as a following in the ACC. My wife went to UNC, so I've got several teams that I follow. And my kind of introduction to this issue actually came from an Association of Governing Boards of Colleges and Universities conference that I went to back in 2017, where they were talking about a lot of issues of the day, free speech, cost of enrollment, declining attendance, but also intercollegiate athletics. And one of the things they talked about was this particular issue, and the trustees that were there, who were on their respective athletic committees, really lamented the direction college sports was going. It was creating increased costs. But they also did note that if they were ultimately to lose their tax-exempt status, that they would basically have killed the golden goose, right? That they thought the industry really could not persevere. And what they needed at the time, and what they've needed probably for the last several decades since the 80s, and what they're looking to get today out of Congress is a antitrust exemption. And I wrote this book because, when I was there, it was good that these guys could kind of understand this issue, right? But there aren't really that many people who have millions of dollars to give to a college or university to get on their board. So, it's important for more people to understand these issues than just those guys. And so this book, I wrote it so that people could get informed about this and understand what's really at stake.
Yeah, I totally agree because I didn't know anything about all that, so I'm extremely excited about what we got going on. Let me just do a quick introduction again. Mr. Thomas McGovern here. We had Road to the Final Hour. It's get on Amazon, and you have a website as well. Do you want to go ahead and let the people know what the website is?
Yeah, just thomasmcgovern.cpa. You don't have to type in anything other than that. Your HTTPs, and then thomasmcgovern.cpa, and it'll take you to my website where there's links to the book as well as some other commentary. Feel free to check it out.
Perfect.
Nice. I wanted to ask you because there's a big dilemma with the NIL for the last few years, and I just wanted to see if you could give us more insight on it. What do you think is the biggest misconception fans have about NIL and the future of college sports?
Well, you've seen NIL actually play a pretty big role in the CFP rankings that we have today, right? You got Indiana, which is relatively a newcomer. They've had a lot of help with donations to NIL. Mark Cuban is a big sponsor. You've got Texas Tech in there. No secret that a lot of West Texas oil money has gone into their coffers. You've got Oregon, which has Phil Knight. And so there are quite a few benefactors for NIL that are household names. I think what people fail to realize is that NIL donations, or contributions rather, they're not really donations, are not tax deductible. So you have a handful of people out there that can afford to do them, and we know their names because they're part of a very small percentage of the population. But the money for college sports doesn't really come from those folks. It really comes from a kind of several sources. The first source is your conference distributions, your media rights, right? That's at least for those groups that are in the FBS subdivision. That's where most of their money comes from. The second largest source of funds for these institutions is donations, right? And not donations from large name donors or secret donors, but charitable contributions to their respective foundations. And then for the smaller programs, those that might be in FCS or in the no football subdivisions, institutional support as well as government aid from their respective state governments, those are very important sources of revenue. And unfortunately, if the institution of college sports was professionalized, i.e., if these student athletes were employed by their respective programs as professional athletes, these groups would lose their tax-exempt status, and they would no longer be able to solicit tax-deductible contributions. In that case, you'd see a lion's share of that revenue dry up, right? It's in the billions of dollars across the system. And you would also see the government support, institutional support dry up, because those groups can't really justify supporting something that's not charitable, that's more for profit. So, and those collectively are more money than like these big NIL donors really have to offset, right?
Yeah, I was wondering a question I was having. You brought it up a couple minutes ago as well. Do you think that professional, the college athletes should just be professionals now, or where do you think this is going? And is this the right move for college?
No, I think we need to maintain college sports as non-professional, right? I think the word amateur has been thrown around a lot, and the public view of amateur is way too voluntaristic, right? It's not really in line with what amateurs are today. I would say like a good example of an amateur athlete or what I call a non-professional athlete is an Olympic athlete, right? They're not paid to compete in those sports, but they can get endorsements and other types of commercial agreements off the field or court, or wherever they're playing, where they can earn some money. Similarly, that's how college athletes operate today. They're not paid directly as employees of their schools. They don't engage in collective bargaining. They don't unionize, but they can get endorsements from outside parties through these NIL arrangements, and certain of which can actually be sponsored by the school under the House settlement that was just approved. But they should not be direct employees. at the very least, if there was professionalization and college sports lost its tax exempt status, it would not be able to support non-revenue sports. There's just not enough money there. The costs would go through the roof. You probably would have a tripling of costs in the revenue programs, because if you think about paying a student athlete something similar to what folks make in the NBA G League or in arena sports, if that's 50, 60,000, it's still more than twice what a grant and aid scholarship would cost for an out-of-state student at a public university. It's roughly 24,000. And not all those students are on full scholarships anyway. So you'd have a tripling of costs, and you'd have revenue probably declining by 40% due to the loss of what I mentioned, the charitable contributions and the institutional support and the government support. And so you'd have a lot of programs that would be insolvent, and probably the bigger ones, maybe the ones that can get the big name donations into NIL, and those that don't care about a tax deduction, they would at the very least no longer really be able to support the non-revenue sports. And that's where we incubate our Olympic athletes.
Nice. For the fans that really care about the traditions, the rivalries, the games of Alabama versus Auburn, UM versus FSU, and the list goes on and on. With NIL and all these teams, these small teams are getting better, while these big teams, they stay good for sure, but there's other teams that are digressing when it comes to skills and winning. In the next 5, 10, 15 years, do you think that there will be more small teams that will become about and take over the NCAA in a sense, or will it still remain the big time players like Alabama, Georgia, and those type of schools?
Well, I think you're going to see the big programs persist to be big, right? They attract not just talent, but they also attract a lot of institutional support and donations from their broader alumni base, right? And as long as they retain their tax exemption, that's going to stick around. I think you will see more of these Cinderella stories, right? Because if you look at UVA, where I went to grad school, one anonymous donation really kind of shook up things in college sports this year, right? You saw UVA, they got we don't know how much it was. It was the end of last year, but they were able to go out and get the talent that ended up putting them into the ACC title game. It created a 5-way tie for second place, which through the ACC's tiebreaker rules ended up with Duke going to that game, winning. And then you did see now, a big controversy about Miami being in vis-a-vis Notre Dame. And, that wouldn't have happened without that singular donation to UVA. And now you're also seeing, so UVA's rival, Virginia Tech, they just got an anonymous donation for a big amount of money, $20.5 million. And they're bringing on Penn State's former coach. So you might see something out of them. Whereas, Clemson, your typical perennial ACC, top of the charts, Dabo didn't really want to use the transfer portal that much. So he's probably going to have to go take a look at that. So you're going to see, I believe the big names still be big, but you're going to see some of these stories come about where an otherwise unconsequential team suddenly makes it into the contention.
Do you feel like that's going to be the only way to advance in the college football playoffs or anything like that, is getting these big donations from it doesn't have to necessarily be a named source, but that's going to be the only way to do it, because Dabo, you are completely correct, was so against it, and yet they kind of fell off the radar a little bit because they're not using that, using the transfer portal and all those different things. Do you think that's going to be the only way going forward that college football teams are going to be able to survive?
Well, I think it's one way, right? You can get a large donation, or you can be successful raising money from your broader alumni base and fan base, similar to Ohio State and Alabama. But yeah, and I do think there may be some regulation coming. There's federal legislation that's being proposed that would put a cap on NIL, an aggregate amount of NIL per team. Right now, it's only capped as to how much you spend from the actual institution itself. And that's your $20.5 million number that's coming out of the House settlement. But there's no cap on what you can spend with outside money. So, in theory, a very large donor could make a check for, let's just say, $100 million, get as many players as he wants off the transfer portal, and have a powerhouse team. No matter who you were before, you're going to be in the CFP, right, that year. That would only change if there was regulation, right? And then I do think the transfer portal needs to be regulated. It needs to have some type of guardrails on it. As it is, you see teams like Georgia having to engage in a lot of litigation and then pursue liquidated damages for students that are taking contracts and then transferring anyway. And so all that needs to be regulated, and it's going to require comprehensive federal legislation. There's going to need to be an antitrust exemption for the governing bodies in college sports. So every time they try to enforce a rule, whether it's NIL, transfer portal, or conduct, they don't get sued by someone alleging antitrust. NIL will probably need to be regulated to avoid kind of like these lopsided arrangements that could occur with one large donor. And you're also going to need to make it clear that student athletes are not employees of the schools that they play for. And then I think you'll see college sports do well going forward, maybe another century or so. If not, I think we have some trouble coming down the pipe.
We did have a couple of people that are watching live checking in. Stacy mentioned that she had a question. They get money from the government. She was kind of confused on that one when you mentioned that. You maybe go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, of all the sources that college sports lives off of, it's you've got, like I said, for FBS, a big program. Most of that's going to be their conference, their postseason football, their media rights distributions. And then you're going to have donations, charitable donations from alumni who write a check and they get a tax deduction. And then after that, you'll see things like institutional support, which is support from the college or university. Now, that becomes controversial because you've got the cost of education going up. And, you know, in a school like Virginia, which has 15,000 students, there really are only roughly, I believe, 700 student athletes. So a very small percentage of the population of your school is actually benefiting directly from these fees and that are diverted to the college sports programs. And then in a public university like a UVA or a UNC, you will see support come in from the state government, right? That's kind of part of the broader university's operating budget is some state government money, some taxpayer money. In a place like UVA, it's very small because they've got their own endowment. Other schools that may have not have been successful with private fundraising might have more government support. But that's really money coming to a public university from their respective state government.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great question because I wasn't quite sure how that worked either. Something we were talking about before. Well, you brought it up is all the conference realignments and stuff. Are you worried that some of these are just going to get null and void? They're going to get taken away, or do you think with the NIL and the transfer and all that good stuff, it's still going to be able to keep this intact? Because some of the smaller schools that's been playing for years, they're just not going to be able to afford to do it anymore. You think, or how do you think it's going to work out?
Yeah, look, I think the conference system is important. It's over 100 years old. It was in the late 19th century. Then in Chicago, they formed what became the Big Ten. And there is a competing piece of legislation in Congress and in the Senate that essentially would try to disintermediate the conferences by allowing the schools to get together and kind of negotiate media rights deals on their own. I don't think the schools are really in any position to do that. Certainly not if you're a smaller, less impactful team with less revenue and less eyeballs on your games. Are you going to be able to have any pull with the media? I think those schools do benefit from association with the conference. The conferences are probably getting a little too big, but if you do see costs continue to rise, such as in an environment with professionalization, it's just going to make things worse where there's going to be more realignments to try to capture more revenue. And then you may see schools going out individually and trying to negotiate their own deals, like Notre Dame has with NBC. But you would have to be a very impactful program that had somewhat of a national following to be able to do that. And so, like I said, I do think if things go in the right direction and we do get antitrust exemption and NIL regulation, and we have it be clear that students are not employees of the schools they play for, we'll be able to persist, and there'll be broad participation from programs of all sizes. If it goes in a direction of trying to become more like a sub-league for the NFL and it's professionalized, I think you're going to see a lot more realignments and maybe even some one-off deals with some of the big programs between they and a media group.
I had a question for you. I got one more question for you real quick. Notre Dame, you brought it up. This is something that's been irking me for years and years. What is your thoughts as a college football fan, as an analysis of what you got going on here? Is it fair for Notre Dame to be independent just in football and then still always have a chance to get in this college football playoff?
Well, whether it's fair or not is a different question as to whether it's something that, persists under the current system. I think the current system, luckily, is fairly capitalistic and If you have the support, like Notre Dame, like I said, has a bit of a national following, not more than a bit of a national following, right?
Right.
Lots of Irish folks in the United States, right? There are more Irish people probably in the United States than there are in Ireland. So there is a support for that particular arrangement. Now, if it didn't make monetary sense, it wouldn't exist, right?
Yeah.
NBC wouldn't make that deal and continue to renew it if it didn't make money for them. So I think the fact that it actually produces revenue allows it to happen. Whether it's fair or not is a whole different story, right?
Yeah. So, with all the donations that are going to the big time sports, like in college football, in college sports, like college football, college basketball, baseball, but for the smaller sports, the sports that really don't get televised, a lot of people don't really go buy tickets for to go see in person. With all this money that's being made in NIL, are there going to be the small sports that are just going to fade away and vanish while all this money is going to the big time sports? Or do you think that it would give them a great impact and actually get people to actually watch them?
I think NIL has actually been positive for those non-revenue sports, from what I've read and what I've heard from athletic foundation members. There, a lot of those sports, a non-revenue sport, many are there on partial scholarships, not full scholarships, and the opportunity to do an NIL deal for a local business provides, oftentimes much needed funds to get through your education. The schools have actually been very proactive in setting up kind of marketplaces where businesses can find student athletes to represent their brand and their product and kind of cross them that way in a way that doesn't require a student athlete to hire an agent or, and there have been unfortunately some unsavory characters hanging around that industry, that are charging usurious commissions. But yeah, and they have been helped out with that. I think this particular system of NIL, it needs some regulation. It shouldn't be as unfettered as it is today. But I think a responsibly regulated NIL system would do well for the revenue sports as well as for the non-revenue sports. Right? The non-revenue sports, unless you're in the Olympics, probably aren't going to be getting the big name endorsements from the well-known companies. But some businesses in the state and in the college town, I think there's a decent amount of money to be made doing that as well.
Was there anything in the NIL, whenever you're looking at it, doing the research for the book and everything like that, that shocked you as allowed that, and maybe some misconceptions that people have of actually what NIL entails and what it actually is?
I think probably the most controversial part of NIL is to the extent to which high school students can avail themselves of it. And it depends on what state you're talking about, because right now NIL is fairly unregulated except by a patchwork of state laws that conflict with each other. They conflict with what the NCAA has promulgated. And so, yeah, that's a controversial thing. And I think there needs to be a kind of broader industry-wide regulation on that. And, the people that are in the know, the coaches and the conference officials, the NCAA officials, and the schools need to figure out if that's something they want to have persist, right? Or if it's going to be regulated in a way where you can sign a deal and you can avail yourself of the NIL money once you're at school and actively playing. That all needs to be figured out, because I think that kind of gets people a little concerned about these deals, especially with like I said, the influence of some unsavory agents, about this stuff actually getting high school students being exposed to this.
Yeah, we had this conversation once before, about a year ago. We both live in Florida, and Florida is one of the states that does allow high school students to start getting NIL. Granted, there hasn't been any major story coming out with it yet, but I just think that's a really slippery slope to go down, because it's really going to take away from the educational side of it. It's just going to basically be paying for playing, and you have to hope that the people that are in charge of the money are actually going to do something what's in the best interest of the student athlete as well.
Yeah, I think it needs to be addressed, right? It needs to be addressed with uniform regulations, not, like I said, patchwork, conflicting state-by-state differences, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, with your professional opinion, what would be one advice you would give to the NCAA board on what can help them when it comes to the money situation and the student athletes, where they could both benefit?
Yeah, I think the NCAA, NCAA has been around quite a long time. They showed up around the turn of the century, and They did a great job regulating football at a time when that sport was particularly dangerous and people were getting hurt and even killed. They've metamorphosized over the years, and there was a landmark Supreme Court case which kind of disintermediated them from the lion's share of postseason football and other media deals that now the conferences control. I think the reality is the NCAA has to realize that the horse isn't going back in the barn, right? They have an important role to play in the landscape of college sports. It may mean they're more the regulator of eligibility and transfers and whatnot, and have less of a say or a stake in the money and the NAL deals and the media deals. But I think that's fine, right? And we have this new college sports commission that's come online, and they may need to take up the mantle more on the regulation of the stuff that's more business-like, right? And as long as the NCAA can kind of embrace that, I think that will work well. What we're seeing, I think, in Congress is a bit of a pushback against comprehensive legislation, especially antitrust exemption, because historically people have had a low opinion of the NCAA, and it probably results from certain of those rules that were implemented that were somewhat unenforceable, and there was a 1,000-page rule book with a lot of myopic rules, and I think that may have been a necessary result of the fact that they had kind of been disintermediated from their regulatory role by that Supreme Court decision, and really had to kind of thread the needle to avoid antitrust litigation. It didn't work. And so I think the best thing for the NCAA is to kind of embrace some of the change. I think they are. I think Charlie Baker's doing a great job. And so you're on the right track to make sure college sports kind of goes in the right direction.
Nice. All right, so we're going to ask you a few rapid-fire questions real quick, just to kind of have some fun with this one here, too. So are you college basketball or college football?
Both.
Both, okay. Good answer. Good answer there. I like both there too on there. Actually, VA's been doing pretty decent. So is UNC, obviously, or something. So you got a lot to actually be excited for. Yeah. All right. So most overrated part of college sports today?
The championship game.
I like that. Yeah, definitely.
It is true.
Super Bowl, right?
Speaking of which, it was something that we've been, George and I have been talking about as well, as with this college football playoff, the bracket system they have going on. I like the fact that the opening teams get to host a game, but why not have the teams that actually advance, like Ohio State, for example? You can't tell me they're not going to sell out the shoe for a playoff game or something. Why don't those guys get those games and they just make the championship game a neutral site? Like, I don't understand why the opening teams get the host the home game, and then you wouldn't have the other teams do it the other way, like they do in the NFL.
Well, yeah, I guess because those guys want their first round bye, right? So it kind of precludes them hosting anything if they're not playing.
Yeah, it's tricky. Let's see another question here. One rule that you would change, and we'll stick with college football here. One rule that you would change today with college football. I know it's a little complicated one, but would like a little interesting.
Yeah, maybe they should go to that longer extra point that the NFL has.
Okay,
I like it.
Okay,
I like it. All right, Mr. Thomas, we really appreciate you coming on here. The book is Road to the Final Hour. We are really excited, and we're definitely going to be trying to shop that book and get that as well, because I'm very interested in everything that you had to say and everything that was on there, man. So we really appreciate you coming on the show. And Mr. Thomas McGovern, man, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, and have a great holiday season and a Happy New Year.
You too. Stay safe, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome having to come on and we can talk some college football and it's just always good to talk about college football. So as well as college football, man, we also had that CFP get released, man, and dude, they had some interesting stuff happen there, man. I know you're happy down there. You got your Canes made it in. How are you feeling about way the college football playoff looks right now?
Man. I'm so glad and so relieved that UM got in, man, because I was about to lose my man. If they didn't get in, man, I would have really been pissed. And it's not even just because I'm a UM fan, man. And when you really think about it, like they were giving it Notre Dame the position. And don't get me wrong, because I believe that Notre Dame should have still gone in. I think that Alabama should have made it, in my opinion. But
I can agree with that completely.
if they were gonna give the spot to Notre Dame and not it's like, dude, we beat them first week head to head. We have the same type of record, and how you not gonna put us in and you're gonna put them in over us? Like that didn't make sense at all. But it's dope. A lot of good teams are in there. You got two teams there that I really think that shouldn't be in there, Alabama and JMU. Like I really think that they shouldn't really be in there, but they are, and it is what it is. But I like the fact that we're in there, man, and hopefully we could get a win this weekend, man, because we need it, baby. We need it.
Yeah, I agree with you on Alabama. I don't think Alabama should have got in there. It's crazy how this whole thing plays out as well. I mean, because going into this season, Texas was the overall overwhelming favorite. They're number one going in, and Texas didn't even make it into the college football playoff. That's a shock for everybody, I'm sure, especially if you looked at what their squad was. Arch Manning, it was definitely interesting that Texas didn't make it in there. But you do have Texas Tech and Texas A&M. If you would have, going into the preseason and said that it's going to be Texas Tech and Texas A&M and not Texas, people would have probably lost their marbles on that one, So
yeah, literally.
I'm actually excited to see what Tulane does. I think Tulane could possibly be the upset team in this week one, if you will, in here. I'm not really sure. I haven't watched. I can't even act like I watched any JMU games at all. I know Oregon is a pretty damn good team, and that Alabama, Oklahoma, I think that's going to be a crapshoot as well. But I'm interested to see what Tulane can do. And partially being a Gators fan, he's going to be our new head coach as well. So it's going to be he's also sticking with his team. So I respect the hell out of that for sticking with the team and sticking with the process to get him into this spot. But Tulane's a pretty damn good team. And I think Ole Miss has played up and down this season, but I'm excited to see what that one. Do you think that do you have any upset picks in here that you're excited about, or you're not really sure how it's going to play out?
Baby, with the upset pick, baby, taking out Texas A&M, dog. Send them to the bleachers, man. I just think our offense is dope. I think Carson Beck, he's had a couple rough weeks this season. But, this is a time to shine. This is a time to do your thing. And Texas A&M, they have a good defense, but their offense is wishy-washy. So I think that we can score more than them, really. I think our defense is pretty good. I think our offense is better than theirs. I think we'll pull out the upset on this one, man. We'll win by at least a field goal. But I think Ole Miss is going to do what they came to do. Man, now that Alabama got in, I don't know, that Oklahoma-Alabama game, I don't know. I still believe in Oklahoma. I think that they can pull it off, but Alabama sneaking in there, they're always a team that can, if they get to either the bowl games, obviously before the college football playoff, now in the college football playoff, if they get in, they're a team that will be scary to face. But the other game, when it comes to Oregon and JMU, I think that's a landslide by Oregon. I think they win by 2 touchdowns there.
Yeah, that's that one. I feel like that. I am happy to see, though. Having said that, especially some of the conversation we were just talking about. It is refreshing to see JMU, Tulane, Texas A&M, Texas Tech is one of the top teams in here to finally make it in. That's what this whole thing was supposed to be about, was getting other teams the opportunity to get in. I don't think it's going to last at 12 teams very much longer. I think it's either going to go 16 or above. I just think that the writing's on the wall on that one, and they're always going to want more because you would have had Notre Dame in there if they would have went to 16. You would have had a few teams in there that probably should have been in this top one in here in the top 12. But it is refreshing to see some new teams in there, and that's what this is supposed to be all about, is anybody getting the opportunity to play. So it'd be kind of cool to see Tulane go on one of these runs, or JMU. It's pretty much, ironically, since this whole thing has started, it's pretty much been the same top tier teams that's won the college football playoff. Ohio State is pretty damn good this year. I don't think that Indiana is going to be able to hold on in this one. I think Ohio State is probably going to run through this like they did last year. I was just looking up a crazy stat about Ohio State, and I believe they only trailed for 6 minutes and 46 seconds last year. And I think this team is better than they were last year as well. I'm pretty high on Ohio State in there, and I think that's not any kind of hot take. I think this Ohio State is very complete. But if I had to, because I have no dog in this fight, I was born in Indiana, so I would be cool with that Indiana winning this thing, but I think that they're maybe a year too early. So I'm kind of pulling for Tulane and Indiana in this one if I had to kick any kind of dogs in the fight. But Texas Tech's a cool story there too, man. Like Thomas was saying before, they basically had some people finally like, why are we getting overpassed? Why don't we spend that money and get these people in here? And they were able to purchase enough players to be able to get them in to make make a team and make a run. So anything is possible with what they have going on, especially with the Wild West style of the NIL and transfer portal, kind of what Thomas was alluding to a little bit ago. So you really do believe though Miami has a chance to win this whole thing?
I don't know about the whole thing because they were going to go up against Ohio State next, and I think Ohio State's the best team, and I think Ohio State goes back to back 100%. But to beat Texas A&M, hell yeah, baby!
It's all about the U, huh?
Hey, and shout out to Fernando Mendoza, man, winning the Heisman straight out of the 305 Columbus High School. Yo, great to see, baby. Miami native.
Yeah, that Heisman race was interesting, too, because you had some controversy coming out of there, too, from Vanity.
There's always going to be controversy.
Yeah, there's always going to be somebody who's not liking it or something. So
of course.
Yeah, man.
But just to go off of what you were saying earlier of going from 12 teams to 16 teams, right? Mm-hmm. Should they make it like top 2 teams of the top conferences go in, or should it be by record? Like, I don't know. I don't think it should just be a committee that they're like, oh, you know what? We're going to choose UM. Oh, we're going to choose Notre Dame. Oh, we're going to choose JMU. Like, I don't think it should be like that. I think there should be like a guideline on what they should go by, that the fans know what's gonna happen at the end of the season. Not waiting on a committee and you're there praying, looking at the TV and looking at the selection show, like please.
Well, they're doing that for drama, and it's also a programming for ESPN. They know they're gonna get at least an hour's worth of people watching it. So I understand the concept of what they're trying to do and build the drama behind it. But having said that, I feel like and I know life isn't always fair and all this other stuff, but I think the best way to honestly do it is that if you're going to have all of these conferences, the winner of the conference championship gets an automatic bid, whether it's, you figure out which conferences you're going to have, and that's your top, 10. Whatever 10 conferences you want, that's your top 10, and you rank them by order. If it's Ohio State in this situation or Indiana, clearly deserve to be 1 and 2, or you can flip them around in there. Like you got the JMUs in there when the Sun Belt. You have these guys that get the chance to get in there, and I think that's truly the best way to do it. And then you have a bunch of at-large. If you're going to have 6 at-large bids, and that's whenever your Miami or one of these other teams, Notre Dame's, come in. But I think that if you win your conference championship, you should get a chance to dance in the tournament.
Yeah, it is kind of like with the NFL too, right? Because like, I understand what you're saying, and I kind of agree, but I more lean to the side of just record-wise, right? Like, I know the SEC is the top dog, and I know that some of the teams in there, they'll finish 3rd, 4th place in their conference, but I'm sure that they could finish first in another conference, for sure, right? But it's just like with the NFL, like, you got teams winning divisions that shouldn't even be in the playoffs. And it's like, why not just switch it to the best record in each conference, man? Like, you got the NFC West. You got the 49ers, you got the Rams, and you got the Seattle Seahawks that are all playing amazing right now. And one of them might not get in because we do it by division. Like, no, man, let's do it by record.
Yeah,
the best teams in there, bro. And I think that's how you're going to get more views.
Yeah, and the hard part is, too, is that kind of to piggyback of what you're saying as well, is that because JMU, they're in here, where they're in the Sun Belt, is that they went undefeated in that conference, but is that really comparable to the SEC, the Big Ten, all these other conferences? So that's kind of where it kind of comes in and makes it a little bit more difficult or gray. I just feel like that if you're going to have a conference championship, then at least reward somebody for winning it and let them sort it out. You never know what can happen. There could be an injury. There could be anything's possible. And I think in basketball, it works because there's styles and different ways of play. You run different offenses. Some guys never get a chance to see running gun offenses or, pressure offenses or any of those kind of things. With college football, it's kind of harder to make make it compatible because you have the likes of Ohio State and JMU that they're bigger, stronger athletes there. Anything can happen, and that is why you play the game. Anything can happen. It's not like there's never not upsets, and there's always upsets every year. But
what if they do like a big time tournament, just like the NCAA tournament for basketball? But that is different because it's 64 teams. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you do with college football, and you start it around week 10, whatever, and it's like 24 teams or 32 teams, and then
That's been kind of my stance on this for a little while, and I haven't been able to totally sit down and work out the logistics on it. But I've always been a proponent of doing a top 25 tournament in there, and the number 1 overall seed automatically goes to the round, kind of how the NFL does. You get the first round bye, or even a second round bye, just a bit narrow it down. Then you can take your top 24 teams, and then you take them, the 4 winners out of that. You can break it down. And I think that truly, because otherwise, what's it matter for if you're number 22 in the country, especially in college football? Is that going to also get you 4 more recruits? No, it's not. They're not going to care. So I think that's the only kind of way to really make this interesting, to make it, you can run all the games all December long and give these, like the Gasparilla Bowl, make that actually meaningful. You can make all these random bowl games more meaningful. You're going to have wear and tear on the players more, so that is a concern. But I think that's the only way to really justify having this championship in here. I've been a big proponent of expanding it, and I also would like to do a top 24, top 25, somewhere in there, championship series. It works out great for the NCAA. It works out great for the NCAA, and you never know. And that's wherever we go back to the same thing we've been talking about a few different times, is the UCF of the world of a couple of years ago. That UCF did have one of the best teams in the league. They claimed the national championship in their own right, and it would have been awesome to see him get the chance. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so speaking of football, we'll keep on that path going down here, man. And we have 2 major injuries that rock the NFL over the weekend. Patrick Mahomes goes down with an ACL injury and an LCL. He did have successful surgery, and they're saying that he might possibly miss the start of the next season, next year. Usually the timetable for those type of injuries is about 9 months to a year. They make advancements, and honestly, it's just everybody's body responds differently. But generally, you're looking at about 9 months or so, somewhere that area in there. And also, another one that's also big was Micah Parsons goes down with an ACL injury as well. Granted, Mahomes got eliminated from the playoffs, which was a shocker just in general that the Chiefs aren't making the playoffs. And then you got Micah Parsons fresh off that big trade. The Packers are heavy favorites in the possibly be a Super Bowl run. What do you think that this does for both trajectories? Do you think that this totally, like, Green Bay is out of it now because of the Micah Parsons, or is the Chiefs? You could also go the avenue of it. Is the Chiefs over because Mahomes is going to be starting out the offseason on the bench probably? Hey, that's a great picture you get frozen on. All right, well, looks like we had a little bit of technical difficulty there. G-Mike just got a little frozen in, so he's going to be maybe hopefully coming back pretty soon. I'll carry on for a little while until we can maybe get G-Mike back on here, but it's an awesome photo to get stuck on, my friend. So anyways, I think that it's going to be a bigger deal for the Chiefs than it is for the I think it's going to be a bigger deal for the Chiefs than it is going to be for the Packers. I think the Packers were already one of the best teams in the league prior to getting that Micah Parsons trade. So I think that's really going to they're going to be able to maintain. I think with Patrick Mahomes, you can already see the Chiefs, their roster wasn't as good as it was in the past. And I think Mahomes was having a great year, and he was he was doing everything he could to keep that team intact. And it just kind of fell apart in the end. I think that their roster just isn't good enough. So I think that it's going to affect the Chiefs a hell of a lot more than it's going to affect the Green Bay Packers. I think Green Bay Packers still are one of the top teams in the league. They still can make it without Parsons. It's just that was going to be a nice addition to get for them to be able to keep on going. With the Chiefs now, I think the Chiefs really have to kind of figure out what it is they're going to do next year. They obviously have Mahomes. Whenever he comes back, I'm sure he'll be in great shape and be ready to play. But I think that they need to figure out the wide receiver game. They need to figure out the run game. And they have a lot of overpriced defensive players. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to be able to maintain and continue on. and get back to where they used to be. It's weird to think that in the playoffs right now that the Chiefs are going to be gone. They've had such a long run of, I believe it was 9 straight years of being in the playoffs and winning the division, and now it's going away. Denver's on the rise. They have also the Chargers. They're on the rise. It's just getting better. And let's face it, too, that division used to be theirs for the claim. The Raiders, we thought might be a little bit better, but they weren't really that great at all this year. So that's kind of difficult for them to maintain and get back up. But I think that the Chiefs really have a lot to look in the mirror about and try to figure out this offseason what they're going to do. This offseason is going to be very interesting for them coming up. So let's see. We got our friend back here. We got Mr. G Mike back.
Jesus.
Oh, man, that was such a fantastic shot for you to get stuck on as well. When you go back and
I saw it.
When you look back at post-edit, that is going to be fantastic for you to see.
Oh, my God. My bad, man. My damn phone just died on me.
Well, anyways, we were talking about, which one do you think is going to affect more? Is it going to be the Green Bay Packers right now because of after the Micah Parsons trade, or is the Kansas City Chiefs going forward? Is this going to be a bigger deal?
I think it's going to be a bigger deal for Mahomes, for sure, for the Kansas City Chiefs and Mahomes. It's like, you really think about it, like you said, 9 months of when they could come back. That's probably not going to be until like the second half of the season for them next year. And it's like, if they don't have Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs are looking bad, man. They're looking bad. But if the Green Bay Packers don't have Michael Parsons, yeah, they're not going to be what they are with their defensive line and their rush defense and the pursuit of the quarterback whenever Michael Parsons goes out there and tries to get a sack, for sure, 100%. But they can live without him. They've done it for the last few years without him. I'm sure they could do it for the next year without him. So I think it's going to be more hurtful for the Kansas City Chiefs than it is the Green Bay Packers.
That was kind of where my mindset was as well, is because, it showed this year that the Kansas City Chiefs they need to figure out their offensive side, which is something you'd never thought you would say about the Kansas City Chiefs. They need to get some dominant wide receivers in there. Rashid Rice is great, but I just don't. I think he's a better suited as like a 2. To be honest with you, I think they need another downfield threat. They're going to have to, unfortunately, for Travis Kelce. I think this is getting towards the end. Maybe keep him in a bubble till the playoffs. But he's getting older. I mean, he's been dominant for so many years. So I think the Chiefs just really need to figure out a lot is going in this offseason, to be honest with you. I thought that it's definitely not an Andy Reid thing. We're not trying to fire the coach or any of that kind of stuff. I just think that they need to kind of regroup and look in the mirror. And, they thought they could get by with this dink and dunk stuff. And I think that they were dominant whenever they went back to that offensive showing with all the longer passes. And they're going to have to figure that stuff out. I don't think they're equipped. And I think one of the easiest things for them would be to get some of the run game. They've had very inconsistent running backs in the last couple of years. Kareem Hunt's been still doing it, but you're not threatened by Kareem Hunt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he'll still get the goal line touches for sure, and he'll get you the TDs in the goal line. But
that's what you want to do. But yeah.
You're gonna need more rushing when it comes to just trying to take it down the field and trying to get to your team's yards 100%. Because you can't now. You're gonna have to depend on whatever quarterback is gonna be playing there for the Chiefs, and no one is like Mahomes.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's definitely going to be very interesting for them, man. All right, man, we're going to go ahead and move over to the NBA as my guy Cooper Flagg is planting the flag, man, making history with 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists at the age of 18 years old. My man is balling, and this is looking really, really good. This is what they drafted him as the number 1 overall pick for. T-Mike, how impressed were you with this performance?
Very impressed, man. Very impressed. And I love the fact that now, he's cooling, he's chilling, he's comfortable, because in the beginning of the season, it looked like he wasn't even going to be a top candidate for Rookie of the Year. I mean, let's be serious. Like, the way that he was playing, it looked like he didn't know what to do. He was too scared to do something. He was super nervous. He didn't know what IQ plays to make. And now it looks like he's getting into his own. It looks like he's taking that leadership role that they want him to take. Because, like I said on our previous episode, I think that the Dallas Mavericks want him to take leadership in full off, because they want to trade away AD, Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, maybe if he comes back or not this year. Who knows? But I think they want Cooper Flagg to be the number one there, and they want to surround everybody else around Cooper Flagg. And right now, he's taking that responsibility, scoring 42 points as the youngest ever in NBA history to do it. And it was a triple-double. Man, he was going crazy.
It was a triple-double and then had 1-3 as well. That's extremely impressive. That means
crazy.
He was doing work in the paint. 15 rebounds as a rookie. 15 rebounds for anybody is difficult. As a rookie, though, man, 15 rebounds and 10 assists. That's just an impressive game for the youngster. I'm really excited that he's developing and in a wild way. We've been kind of mentioning this as well, that Dallas is really off this year, but in a weird way, it might be the best case scenario for Cooper Flagg for him to get his wings, if you will. Let him realize that, hey, I am the number 1 overall pick. I can play in this league. I deserve to be in this league. I can do this. And so it's big for him to be able to work through all of this stuff that he's having to work through with the whole AD trade. You're replacing Luka. He seems like he's not letting the pressure get to him. And I totally agree with you. I was really nervous the first few games when I was watching them. As a Mavs fan, I was like, we literally traded Luka and we got this guy, and this is not going to work. He was great in college. He was exciting. But I'm becoming a major, major believer in him. The last few weeks, what is he? I think he's averaging about 25, 26 points a game the last 2-3 weeks in a row. He's really coming into his own, man. And let's face it, man, he's only 18 years old. He's young. So he's turning 19, I believe, Sunday it is. So Cooper Flagg, shout out, props to you for putting on a show. What the worst part is about this whole thing, though, as a Mavs fan, is that you can go, oh man, Cooper Flagg, he's the future, he's doing great, and then we lose the game still.
Yeah,
you break history and you lose. So.
And that goes to show for everybody out there that they swear that they're basketball gurus and think that it's only a 1-on-5 game. You need your whole team to win, dog. You need the team. You need to win games. You need the whole team. You need to get to the playoffs. You need the whole team. You need defense. Right. You need offense. You need creativity. You need IQ. You need great coaching. You need a great front office. Like, it all comes together, man. It's not just one-on-one basketball out there. This ain't NBA Street Volume 2.
Yeah, I mean, and going into the overtime, Dallas only scored 4 points in the entire overtime. So, they end up losing by 7 or something like that. But the main story really was going to be Cooper Flagg, though, man.
And if you ask Flagg, I bet you after the game he was still pissed off.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He was like, I that's cool, we made history, but we still lost, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. You got to win. At the end of the day, it's all about the dub.
Yeah, so speaking of basketball on here, too, we have the NBA Cup going on, the championship game going on right now, and I did not see this one coming. 17-12 by San Antonio. San Antonio knocking off the Oklahoma City Thunder. We got the Knicks and the Spurs going old school with 2 classic teams here. Have you watched much of the NBA Cup? Are you getting into this Cup thing, or are you still on the fence with it?
I like the NBA Cup because it brings a lot of continuity. It brings a lot of intensity at the beginning of the season. A lot of want to watch basketball, really, if you put it in those terms. It's just like, it's very exciting for the beginning of the season because you know how players can be and how teams can be. And, the beginning of the season can just be like a jog along, a ride along. And it's like, okay, we're waiting till February after the All-Star break where things really get in motion and really get in play. But this shows right here that they want to play. They'll play hard for each other. And at the end of it, they get a great reward for, whatever team wins it, either the Knicks or Spurs today, obviously. But, you got the top players. They're making millions of dollars. They're straight. But the dudes at the end of the bench, the 14th, 15th player on the bench, they're only making $500,000. And I only say only because I'm comparing it to other NBA players. But for us, obviously, that would be amazing. But comparing it to other NBA players, they're only making $500,000. So they go out there and they win this game, they could get another $500,000 on top of that they could give it to their family, their kids, their cousins, whoever, whatever they want, or they could invest it in the business. It's a great reward. Again, at the beginning of the season, more intensity being played, rewards being given out, and it just makes more viewership for the NBA.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I personally didn't really tune into the NBA Cup too much. Honestly, this is because Dallas is kind of not good this year, so I'm not even going to act like I was paying attention to it because I was just like, it's another loss. But Dallas actually did pretty decent in there. But having said that, I think it's cool. I like the courts. I like how they made the courts. I don't know why they don't do that more often with like the designs they came out with, and it's a reason to go to Vegas, and it's fun. We've had the conversation in the past. I wish that there was more of an incentive for as like the fan to watch. Maybe get a draft pick or something like that. But it is getting a little bit better. It's getting more noticeable. People are paying attention to it a little bit more. And hell, I mean, you got the youngster with Victor Wembanyama might be able to get some sort of ring already, you know. So on his way, I think, to what I already predicted was his MVP season. So
prediction. No, if he stays healthy, 100%, he could be MVP and Defensive Player of the Year.
That was exactly what I said. I said that was my early season pick was Wembanyama to pull both off. You got any predictions for this game?
I got Spurs to win, baby. Spurs money line. If you guys know on the Telegram, the Degenerates, you already know we put the money on it. They were plus 125, I think, this morning. It probably changed a little later in the afternoon, but put a little $50 on there, man, to make double the money. You heard?
Yeah, I'm going to San Antonio as well. I'm kind of high on San Antonio at the moment. I think they're playing really well. Like I'm just a big Wembanyama fan. So, all right, my friend, let's go ahead and jump into tonight's Down Bad Debate.
It's time for the Down Bad Debate.
All right, sticking with that NBA theme here. One's gotta go style. All right, we got Steph Curry, we got Trae Young, we got Kyrie Irving, and De'Aaron Fox. For the Sacramento Kings, De'Aaron Fox, Kyrie Irving for the Mavs, and obviously Trae Young and Steph still playing with the same team in here. All right, Mr. G Mike, you're up first, my friend. Who has to go and why?
I feel like we're both gonna choose the same person, but just to explain it a little bit, right? Steph Curry, greatest shooter of all time. Kyrie Irving, greatest ball handler of all time. De'Aaron Fox is a great two-way player, in my opinion. He's very fast. I think he's the fastest player in the NBA right now. Trae Young, great shooter and great facilitator. He knows how to get his team to score and get them in the right places to score. But I got to take out Trae Young just because he has no type of defense. Like, I know Steph Curry doesn't have defense either, but it's a little bit better than Trae Young's. I know Kyrie Irving doesn't have defense either, but it's better than Trae Young's. De'Aaron Fox does have defense, but the way that Trae plays, man, you know, I can't put him over the greatest shooter of all time and the greatest ball handler of all time. So I got to take out Trae Young.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one too, and I'm glad you brought up De'Aaron Fox as a two-way player as well. You bring up a good point because De'Aaron Fox was between De'Aaron Fox and Trae Young. I think that's probably the most obvious one in here. I don't think anybody is kicking out Steph Curry for anything on here. And Kyrie, you could bring up a point that you could possibly find a way to, maybe because of the injuries, and you got that whole thing. He hasn't really won anything without LeBron, and you know, is he really that solo of a guy, like, you know, the number one? You can easily kind of create that kind of argument, but I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to have to agree with you here. I'm going to take out Trae Young. I don't think that it's hard though, because this is the hard part of it here. Trae Young in the playoffs balls out. It's kind of hard to say what De'Aaron Fox would do in the playoffs because he hasn't really had all that experience. So I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go Fox. I'm going to take out De'Aaron Fox just for that reason of we don't know what he's going to do in the playoffs. He hasn't really ever shined in the playoffs. I don't even know if he's even actually made the playoffs yet. So I would take out Fox because I know what Trae Young brings. What was it, 4 years ago? He was bringing almost the Atlanta Hawks into the Eastern Conference Finals. Whenever he gets in that mode, whenever he starts getting ice cold, Trae Young can shoot with the best of them. So I would prefer playoff Trae Young if he could play that way all the time. That would be fantastic. But I'm going to take out Fox in this one. Not by much, though. I would like to keep either one of those two in there, but I'm going to take out De'Aaron Fox.
For sure.
All right, my friends and family, this is the end of our show for tonight, man. Don't forget, it is the holiday season, so make sure you tell your loved ones you love them. It's a very stressful time for certain people and everything, so if you see somebody down, make sure you give them a hug. Make sure you let them know that everything's going to be all right, and have a happy holidays. As for us, we want to make sure we tell all you guys as well, happy holidays, and thank you for tuning in to the show. We want to give a shout-out to Thomas for coming on the show. The book is Road to the Final Hour. Make sure you cop that book, because that's going to be very interesting. And he did a very good job of explaining some of the dynamics in the business side of the college sports. And there's a lot of questions that people have, and a lot of things that need to be discussed in there. And I agree with him that we need to come up with some sort of regulations, because otherwise it's the Wild West, and anybody can spend the money and do whatever they want in there. So I agree with what he's saying, and that was a great guest coming on. We really appreciate Thomas for coming on. We might be able to bring him on another time, which would be awesome as well. Mr. G, Mike, got anything for the people before we sign off, my friend?
Yeah, guys, it feels good to be back. I know we took a couple of weeks off, but we back and we on and popping. We got Christmas coming up next week. Merry Christmas to all you folks. We got Happy New Year after that. Happy New Year to all you folks. And please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share the show with your family and friends, strangers walking down the street, whoever, baby. Let them know Views from the Stands is the number one spot to get your sports content, and you love listening to the boys. We appreciate y'all.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Have a safe rest of your week, and we will see you next week. Have a great night. We out.